Welcome to The Growth Agenda, a sales and marketing podcast presented by Quadrant Consulting. In this podcast, we explore how commercial leaders can provide new answers to the old question, where will growth come from? We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Hi, Alexander. Welcome and thanks so much for coming today.
Pleasure.
I've worked with Jeppe now for, 3 years, 4 years? One of the things that he loves to tell people and talk about is how much of a marathon runner he is, because he did a marathon once. But we also know that you're a bit of an endurance sport guy. And now Jeppe is complaining about, I don't have the time to run anymore. How do I take it to the next level? If you had to give Jeppe an advice on how to take the next level in endurance sport, while at the same time being limited on time, how have you done it? How do you get your sports done and work the way you do at the same time?
I run during lunches. That's how to do it.
There we go.
Because I used to do endurance sports, biking, swimming, and running. The beauty with running is that it only takes you the time to tie your shoes. That's it. And then you do it for 45 minutes and you're back again.
Yeah.
A bike trip takes 4 hours, and if you have a flat tire in north of Esrumsø, then there's a long way, and your wife will definitely not pick you up when she has all the kids at home.
Do you have any favorite running routes that you do around home, or do you do it in the office as well?
Yeah, so from the office, it's definitely at Biologiens Vej. It was right out over to Dyrehaven.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
Yeah,
I haven't done it yet up in Hørsholm. At home, it's the same route every time. Now it's also taking it in the weekends with the kids.
You go with the baby stroller?
The baby stroller and the bike for the big one.
Yep.
So that gives, then I have 2 kids with me, and then they will get to the playground. They can choose which playground on the route they will get. So that's the pedigree for them to join. So it's really about getting the benefit from all the other people as well around you, like a short trip. I'll take the kids, these kind of things.
So now there are no excuses to take it from the marathon to the ultra running now.
No.
We obviously know you, Alexander, from the work you've been doing at Novonesis now, or Novozymes now, Novonesis. But maybe for all of those listeners that don't know you that well, maybe a quick introduction to yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Alexander Broe, and now I sit as a head of sales for our Europe, EMEA, and LATAM region for consumer health in Novonesis. So that means that if you know about Novonesis, it's primarily biosolutions, ingredients that you sell to a lot of big multinational brands around the world. But we also have a small unit that sells branded products. So products that are actually B2C out in the market. And that's what we call consumer health. And there I sit managing 2 brands.
What's been your experience with, how many years have you been in Novonesis now?
So I've been there for 4 years. I came from the Novozymes side of things. That was very much a startup vibe. We were, you can say, kind of an incubator, or it was placed under corporate strategy in the beginning. So I was one of those first around 30 people where you had one-to-ones introduction with each and everyone when you joined. And then within 2 years, we had acquired some companies and were more than 400 people. So it grew quite fast. During a pandemic, where other people were laid off. So that was super exciting to experience. So that journey, coming from a corporate startup vibe to a scale-up, and then being merged into I would say, a fully operational machine for the human health division, has been quite a corporate journey.
How did you experience from the company's perspective? Because there's a bit of a shift in being a B2B company and having the mindset of selling B2B to suddenly also making the leap all the way to the consumer and having them in mind when you develop products. Was there anything there that you experienced that was a bit of a shift for the company too?
Definitely a shift. And I think it also really relates to the people you put in charge. So the one heading up our unit definitely came with the experience from B2C world, and also knew how to talk to, you can say, investors, if you would call your executive management that, and could speak both that language, but also to the customers. I think there is definitely a lot of differences between the way I'm thinking. For instance, marketing budget. I started my role in marketing. I had a much bigger spend marketing-wise than my colleagues in the B2B universe. It also made sense because they have had the same customers for 40 years. It was great relationships. They were market leader in their industries. So how much do you need to spend on marketing and telling people that you exist, compared to a new startup where you go into a new industry and you also want to go B2C? The marketing budget is way different, and all of a sudden you need to shout much more that we are not just a B2B company, we are also bringing finished formatted products to the market. So I think because I was in marketing, that was one of the key things I noticed. That was a big difference.
I'm going to make a bold prediction here. When Alexander Broe was 10, 15 years old, he didn't say, I'm going to be a marketing guy or a sales guy when I grow up. What's been your journey into these roles that you've had and you have now?
I would actually say that if I was 15 and I would look at the role I have today, this would be the job I wanted, actually.
Why is that?
I grew up I've had family in the industry as well. So it's not that distant what I'm doing now. I'm constantly benchmarking to what my rest of my family have been doing. I think when I decided to go more into the science and took a dairy engineer, which was I studied, I found it super interesting that if you have milk and you add something, you get yogurt. If you add something else, you get cheese. And if you treat it mechanically, you get whipped cream. What's going on, like biotech here? I found that super exciting. Throughout the studies, I realized that if I want to pursue that, I would have to go into R&D. And here there was, maybe if you were investigating something super cool and mind-blowing, it would be maybe 8 years before it was on the market. So the curiosity didn't really meet the impact, which is why I, since that discovery, have tried to work my way all the way out to being able to sell our products and then seeing the impact faster, which is what I find now. But it's been a long journey to get from the discovery and R&D all the way out to sales.
And what's been, so I know you've both obviously been procurement, you've been you've been a product manager, you've been a brand manager, now you're head of sales. What's sort of been the hardest points of transition for you? Was that going from procurement or category manager to product manager to brand manager, or was that the transition to sales? What's been most challenging about those?
So I joined procurement not really knowing what it was, but I thought it was cool that every penny saved is directly on the bottom line. That was, well, here's some impact. That was what I missed in the R&D discovery part. And I worked my way up in procurement. I realized that in procurement I was internally selling a lot of supplier solutions. And 1 week it was pest control. The next week it was rubber gloves or mouth protection. That was not that sexy before COVID. It was always about standardization, optimization. And to be honest, I was in Novonesis that made a lot of money, grew double digit every year. So they were not really looking at procurement for the next big thing. And transitioning away from procurement over to a commercial role was really challenging. To me, I was saying I was sitting and negotiating on one side of the table. Now I need to sit on the other side. Or I have been selling a lot of my suppliers' solutions internally. But going over to a commercial, they maybe look at procurement guy as those annoying last point of contact you need to go by. Exactly. Yeah, but that last person, right? You need to convince before you make the sale, and they are always pushing you on the price. Yeah. So I could just feel I had a lot of interview when I had taken my MBA to make the switch. That it took a long convincing, and I would say it was because of this corporate startup environment where people were focused more on getting exciting people on the bus than someone who came with tons of marketing experience. I believe I could do it, but I at least feel sometimes maybe in Denmark, where we are very well educated, experience starts to count a lot. So if you don't come with 3-5 years of marketing experience, how can the hiring manager be sure that you know about marketing? And here I was so lucky to meet some people who liked people who took the leap and quit their job for their dreams, and that was how I get. So that would definitely be the hardest switch. Since then, it's more been people making the decision for me than me making the decision.
What would you say, one of the things that we're interested in hearing about today has been some of your experiences over the past decade with how marketing used to be and used to be thought of in the companies versus how you work with it today and think about marketing today. Any reflections on, it doesn't have to be just within Novonesis, but when you started out, how companies that you were involved with thought about marketing, what they did, the people they had versus what you're seeing now, and maybe seeing going ahead the capabilities you're trying to develop?
Yeah, I think even today you can look within the same company or in the same group at people who are looking at marketing one way or the other, where you would definitely have those people who really have build their career around relationships, love to go to the big trades or interactions with people who they are extroverts. They like to be around people and have been in the sales role for decades. And then you have another person who are more, let's do it more structured, let's leverage all the e-commerce, the opportunities you have with LinkedIn or leads collection in your Salesforce systems, much more technically driven. So I think, and that's, you can say maybe it's been shifting over the last decades, but I still think you have both groups. At least I experienced that. I sit now, some years ago I was in a marketing role where it was B2B marketing. Now I sit where I go out and evaluate my distributors' marketing plans and capabilities. And I both at home or with a customer, I see that relationship matters a lot when you talk to one group of people, and then digital matters a lot when you talk to another group of people. And I think we need both.
Some of the things that I really admired with what you guys were doing with One Health back when you were starting that up and building it was the extent to which you tried to have commercial ambitions for the clients that you were working with, help them out with research, market opportunities. I just thought it was extraordinary the way you guys didn't just, try to sell them a product with technical benefits, but went all the way into helping them grow their businesses as well. Is it something similar to that you're continuing now, trying to help your distributors, your customers develop and grow their business?
That is exactly what we're doing, and I think it's an even bigger scale now. So the division I sit in, we have, you can say, 4 value hypotheses. One of them is about revenue. Like we need to not be a cost center. We need to give some numbers in, and we do that luckily. But the 3 others is about being an incubator for new science. It's about capturing real-world evidence data back, which is in our industry, you do some clinical trials where everything is standardized and you can see that, yes, something happened when you took the product, but equally you need to support it with real-world evidence that when you are out in real life, does it still work? And we can do that with our brands. And then the final thing is we come with a lot of new innovation. And sometimes the B2B customers like it, but they see it a bit risky to jump into this new, that probiotics all of a sudden can help your brain. I mean, I thought probiotics was something that was in a yogurt or maybe help you in the stomach. Why can it help you in the brain? But then we can incubate or build a new category in the division I sit in. So we are 150 people now who are working also on bringing insights, testing new environments for the benefit of our B2B colleagues who are the biggest. So it's it's even bigger. Now I'm just in that machine where we are capturing or learnings that we can give to the big multinationals. So it's de-risking their investment, or
That makes a lot of sense, Alexander. And one of the things I'm also curious about is sort of, I know you've transitioned from direct B2B sales to large, very complex businesses, complex type of sale, to, now you're basically distributor-led model, as I understand it here. How's that different on a day-to-day basis, working with distributors versus trying to sell to direct B2B?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you actually do in your role?
Yeah, so in my previous roles, I had responsibility for multinationals. That is very long sales cycles. It's technical sales. It's like, how does the ingredients work with other ingredients? How do one of the ingredients inhibit the other? How do they flow into the capsule? Technical expertise is needed for that. We have great colleagues to support us but that's around the discussion. If we're lucky, we get into one of their big brands that they have had for 40 years. And sometimes you can look at those multinationals and see these brands that's a bit boring. They've been around for so long, right? And now they take our star ingredients and put it into yet another product. In the new B2C organization, we have I think a super beautiful new brand. Of course, it needs to get recognition and be built. But the discussions with the distributor is then much more around how do we create brand awareness of our brand. Maybe it's a bit more of a review of their competences. They will be a local hero I was, for instance, in Spain on Friday, reviewing where they come and present what have they done, how are their numbers performing, what do they see, what happens at the pharmacies. Oh, the doctor gives the patient a note, but at the pharmacy, someone like a pharmacist or a clerk or assistant, they recommend you something else. So how do you avoid that switch? Or how do you convince doctors who think probiotics is only for diarrhea? How do you get that credibility? So it's much more different tasks, review of their point of sales marketing versus the influencers, how can we use them, versus doctors like gastroenterologists or pediatricians or all these different groups of HCPs, and how do they I wouldn't say advertise, but promote your product or better get aware of the benefits. Yeah. So it's very different.
Yeah, but it's a huge value add once you get those complex go-to-market systems like the one you're talking about there, where it isn't enough just to get it to the distributor. It isn't enough that the distributor can get it to the pharmacies. It isn't enough. But there's this whole chain of stakeholders all the way to the end consumer, from the person standing in the pharmacy or the over-the-counter shop. And it's such a complicated go-to-market system that I also think that's where you guys can add a lot of value to these distributors in helping them meet the requirements of operating in a system like that.
And we can create, I would say, also safe environments where they can learn. Typically, we would have a distributor that have a territory. So we invite them all for partner days. And then you can see people from Poland giving their ideas about how they overcome some challenges. And then the guys from Portugal think, oh, that's interesting. Or the guys from Norway sits and think, that's not possible in our regulatory environment. How come you are able to tell all this to consumers? We know the science works, but the regulatory environment inhibits us from communicating it. And then there can be brainstorms across. So they all trying to do our job, right? They are trying to convince each other of building the business together with us. That's really amazing to be part of these partner conferences.
What do you think is required to be a good distributor partner manager? You know, someone in your role, what's required to be good in that role?
I think you need two things. I mean, as every sales role, you need to sell internally and you need to sell externally. So for the external part, you need to be able to evaluate when you find a new distributor, what competences do they need to have? And here it's not only good that they have coverage, but they should also have a portfolio where you fit into the portfolio. You need to make sure that the sales reps they are sending around understand a bit about probiotics, but they should also have some reason to sell your products over potentially a distributor can have many different products, right? So there are that evaluation. Once you have them in, I think it's about evaluating them on the trending. How are they performing year over year? Are they going good? And what are they doing to reach those numbers? So it's not just pure luck that they sold in January. No, it was a consequence of the campaign they ran in the fall. And then you need to benchmark, because it's obviously fantastic they grew 10%. But if the market was growing 25 and you don't know about the benchmark, then they can be even better if you help them. So it is about that evaluating, I would say, trending and benchmarking, and then being sure that we bring material to them as well. So the learnings from other countries or from our own countries, marketing, webinars where we have some key stars, like key opinion leaders it's called, that they are at having discussions about our products to educate about probiotics, because it is still new to many HCPs. I think that's when you do it externally. Internally, it's about explaining why do a company like Novonesis, that is a B2B company, have a B2C arm. It's about helping my colleagues in B2B pretending a bit to be their customer and getting some of all these data in. It's bringing all those insights back. And then also, the products, bringing different ideas, the needs. If some of the our distributors talk about a gap, they want to launch a new product for menopause, then bring those ideas in so that our R&D or innovation team can develop something there. So both selling both ways.
How are you with I think they call it productive tension, or conflict that isn't shouting and screaming, but is that something you're okay with? The reason I'm asking is very often when it comes to distributors and those who manage distributors, at least something we've seen a lot of time is that a lot of them has been sort of relationship managers, more focused on pleasing the distributors and being accommodating, where a big transition for a lot of these companies have been from the channel managers accommodating the distributors to pushing them a lot more and being comfortable in that role of being, creating some tension, but in a productive way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So the way I have dealt with it is, I think some of those I have worked with the longest now know the sentences, I would say, but I have always rehearsed the same, because I personally don't have an aggressive personality. That's not me, but sometimes it's necessary, so you need to learn and adapt that.
I don't mean like shouting and screaming.
Yeah, but I would always say, Joe, I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate here, and then I would say the points. Yeah. So it's like an easy calming down, and then putting that role of saying, guys, I'm just putting on a cap now where I know I will be annoying. Now you know it. And then I would say the points in an not maybe so nice way, but they would have been warned, and it's like I'm playing the devil's advocate here, and I hear you when you say that marketing to pharmacies doesn't work because they are only about business. However, I have seen it work in other countries. Please convince me, not with your subjective point of view, but with some data, why this doesn't work in Spain, for instance.
It's actually fun. That's how you would also do a lot of discovery in sales. You would say, because you would have to challenge people on what they do currently. Yeah. But in order to get the sort of, in order to be able to do that, ask those tough questions, challenge customers a little bit, well, you'd have to say, now I might be challenging, or now you're sort of disclaiming whatever you're about to say, because you gain the access or the right to ask that question. Super interesting. A different thing that popped to mind is you're fairly new in this role, Alexander. Was it like 2 months? 3 months? 3 months now. Yeah. I'm imagining when you're fairly new in a role like you are, you also look a little bit ahead in time, 6-12 months or perhaps even more, and think about what are the main focus areas that's going to be for my role and the department that I sit in here. What can you share some of those key focus areas that you have over the next?
I mean, in order to really be a value creator to the rest of the organization, getting these real-world evidence data I talked about before, incubation of new technologies, we need a bit more scale. So it's a clear goal. We want to double in 3 years. That's our target. And it's, I think we can do it if we manage to find new customers. The benefit, I would say, of having a region called Europe, rest of the world, is that you have, 100 and something countries. The downside is that you need some strategy to figure out where to play and how to win, because we will not be in plus 100 countries. So it is about finding these pocket of growth areas, like these 10 distributors around the region that we trust in. So that's a part of our 100-day plan, as you always have when you start a new role, to figure out where to play and then how to win.
Makes a lot of sense. So you basically gotta identify, well, where is that doubling of revenues gonna come from?
Exactly. Where does it? And I definitely think we can work with our existing distributors. They're really good, but we might need to change one or two of them. But we definitely also need to find, I would say, 2 new rather quick. But it's about where should it be. Middle East could be interesting if we have the internal capability to service that market. But if someone comes with an idea that, I don't know, Nigeria is super sexy and interesting, and we are not present there today, then if the numbers, if the statistics or the objectives looks like that could be attractive, let's go for it. But one thing is total addressable market. Another thing is if it's actually if there's no barriers, or if there's no competition. And then a third element is our competences. Are we able to do it? And that's something we're going through right now. Yeah.
Because we have you in the studio here, what are some of the new consumer health trends that are coming or growing a lot right now? What are you guys working on, or what are you guys launching?
Yeah, so I think in the ingredient industry over the last 5 years, it's been a lot talk about gut-brain axis, which is an idea that our stomach is our second brain, and the microbiome, the approximately we all run around with 1 kilo of bacteria in the stomach. Why don't we get the best one in there? And some of these actually link to how we sleep, how we deal with stress, how we deal with low mood. That's a huge thing. But being able to communicate that to consumers is challenging, because you can see just in the Nordics, it's only 1 or 2 years ago that we were allowed to say probiotics on a pack. So that's so new. So the industry is catching up, but it goes slowly. So I would say gut-brain axis is something that will hit the consumer from now and on. Then what are we then discussing this year? That's I think, especially when you are out of Denmark, you know about Novonesis. But I was in the spring in the US, and over there they hear about Wegovy all the time. And there are some side effects. There are some possibilities when you stop taking the product that you have a rebound back to where you were before. So there's a lot of hype. Can you find some adjacent product that can work super well with this crazy blockbuster? That's been a lot of talk. So what can you do with cardiovascular diseases or obesity when you come to supplements? That's also some. And then there's so many other opportunities where probiotics can help. But that, I think, that is the 2 major things I've seen. We have products for one of them. We don't have anything that can go well with Wegovy, but it could also be a very crowded market when everyone tries.
Yeah. And what's the line that you guys have to be aware of in terms of, so when you're in supplements, you're somewhere in between a pharmaceutical and, I don't know, food with health benefits or something. Like, how do you place yourself in that? And there's a lot of pitfalls, I guess, you have to be extremely careful of when you work in that space.
Yeah, I think it's a very challenging environment also, because it differs from country to country. So in some areas you can be a food supplements, then you can be a medical device. In other areas you can be a food. You can be a food for special medical purposes, and I've even heard that some areas of the world you can be considered an alcoholic beverage. So it can really vary regulatory what area you're in. And I think that's because it's a bit more immature industry, and it will be consolidated. What I found interesting with being there is that we, instead of treating diseases, we can take a more holistic view and then preventing some of these modern lifestyle diseases. So I think it's super interesting to be part of, but it is sometimes frustrating to have science, know that a lot of your competitors don't have the science, but still claim something, and being restricted and not being allowed to talk about it. That can also be frustrating sometimes.
What about stuff like when you're selling or managing accounts? How much does the documentation matter? I mean, I could imagine for a company like you, your distributors, customers, I mean, there's like a certain amount of documentation that they need to have in place, continuously updated as well, just like the other parts of Novonesis business.
Yeah.
Is that a big thing that you can deliver on that?
I would say documentation I don't know the reason why, but definitely I felt the documentation part was bigger in my previous role than in this role. In this role, we are selling the finished formatted product, so we have the responsibility. And therefore, if there's something wrong, it will go to us. So it's a bit less risky, and therefore I felt that when I was in B2B, you would have documentation on safety, you would have documentation on the ingredients, on the stability of the ingredients, maybe together with other things. You would also have the responsibility that if it is a powder that creates dust in the factory where it will be formulated, then you need to have documentation that dust is not dangerous to the production workers for your customer. So all of a sudden, I don't have all that. I have a product sheet that goes like a leaflet you have in the product, but you have the responsibility. So I think the documentation I spend most time on right now is the clinical trials, the foundational reason to believe, and then material around marketing.
That's a really different world, the B2B one, the B2C one,
Yes.
I guess, especially also when you're dealing with finished products. A different topic that I find incredibly interesting about the journey you've been through over the past year, 2 years, is the topic of going from Novozymes and Christian Hansen to well, probably the largest merger in Danish history, or one of them at least. I don't know how much you can share, but perhaps just on a more personal note, what's that been like, being part of that?
I would lie if I said it would have been fun. Obviously, you have a great family feeling with all your colleagues, and all of a sudden you get into a period where you know that each and every one of them is being evaluated, and you most likely know that you will not be, all the people you like will not be there any longer. And I did feel that a lot of my colleagues had to leave, which is unfortunate. So it wasn't a fun spring, but I don't think you could do it in a nice way. It is a merger for synergies, and I think there is a lot of synergies, especially within our human health area. We have now been, before, as I said, we were a corporate startup under strategy. Now we are our own division. So you can definitely feel that we have been bigger, and the synergies are within and it's exciting to be the place where everyone looks. Of course, you don't need 2 head of Europe, you don't need 2 head of US, you don't need 2 head of China. So of course there are some cost synergies as well. And that's always hard to say goodbye to good colleagues, and hopefully they will land in new places. And then when you have to let go of people, you also start, because now you know what's going to be the future, you will start hiring a lot of people again. So it feels a bit weird that you let go of a lot of good colleagues, and after summer you start hiring. But I think it's just important to remember that those people that helped build and reach where you are today doesn't necessarily have those. There have to be those that will help us going forward, but still honor them and saying thanks for what you did till we reach here, then I think it's good. Yeah. So it's been tough. Yeah.
Maybe on that note, how have you set like who's on your team, the team that you're part of? What kind of roles do you have on there? Are they all people like you that go out and manage distributors, or is it different kinds of roles you set the team with?
So it's a very small team at the moment, and yes, it's all for my region. It's all managed by distributor. We have a distributor model. We don't want to go out and have a sales force or have a contractual set up sales force locally. We try to find distributors locally that are heroes in their region and can come with all these small insights about not only the law of regulation but also how you interpret it. That's super helpful. So it is people like me, you can say, but I would then say still it can be very different because some have been in the business of nutritional supplements for 30 years and have seen so many things and have built so incredible relationships, and then there's someone comes with a new mindset with different perspectives, maybe come from another, even managing distributors, but in a slightly different way because distributors can be so many different things. So I think we have a good mix. We are growing, so we are also out hiring at the moment to bring even more people. Right now, it's a lot of remote managing, which also is different to being one at the same office. But in principle, the customers are out in the world. So as long as people are close to an airport and willing to travel, then that shouldn't be a downside to be sitting in, I don't know, Paris or Zurich or London or a beach next to Nice.
How often do you check in with the distributors? Do you meet once per year, a few times per year, or how does it work?
We try to do face-to-face quarterly and then catch up monthly, I would say. Yeah. At least once a year we try to get our senior management with them. So we also get the bit of a knowledge and attention on both sides to force the relationship. Yeah.
Do you do anything beyond like the business part of distributor management? I mean, looking at the numbers, do you go for, I don't know, like a run with them, or you know what I mean, like those things outside?
We usually go for dinners. That's always something we try to do, and I think sharing and having a meal together, especially if you're out in a different country, they would like to invite you to something, and I think there's so much to learn when you're over a meal. I'm lucky; I don't have that many restrictions, and I'm okay to eat everything. So that has been a good opener for me. I would say at trade shows, it's been usually running in the morning. That's been with colleagues. That's also a good way because you don't necessarily see each other that often. So that's why I have used running I think at every trade show I've ever been to. There's been a running once or twice in the mornings.
Something that I always found really cool about a lot of these distributor businesses, that a lot of them are also with family businesses, especially when you go down to some place like Spain or South America, and you really get the feeling that you're building close relationships with them too, and it's quite amazing to, I guess, build those kinds of relationships and have the chance to build a relationship to distributor businesses where it's it's still like it's the head of the family that runs it. Maybe they have family members as part of it, and I've just seen some amazing relationships being built out of that, because it isn't, I don't know, it seems different in some ways than the company to company thing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think for many of the distributors we have, it's the owner or the founder, and that has pros and cons. I would say definitely you feel they know everything about the business. Sometimes you can always sit and think, are they subjective in their recommendations then, or are they able to empower their employees? What happens if that person retires or get into a like knock on wood injury? That's a bit vulnerable. That's some of the concerns I would have. And then there's always, because we are a big I would say, Scandinavian company, it can be challenging if you invite someone up for a session, exchange of ideas, and okay, they fly all the way to Denmark. You host them for 1 day. That means that you will possibly pay for their hotel 2 nights. They would like to explore the rest of Copenhagen. We are not a company that pays for trips to Tivoli or to extended weekend trips in Malmö and all that. And that can be sometimes a family business don't necessarily understand that. Or when the founder's son would like to have an internship, can you please honor that? I mean, some of these things where you really want to honor the relationship, but you also need to remember the business integrity and the way we work. But they always, I'm not. It's always a bit uncomfortable when you mention it, but I've never experienced that it didn't work out. But I think there are so many good things around the families, and they really know the business and know they're local. They are really local heroes.
I think maybe I'm saying it because one of the things I've always enjoyed about being in business is the fact that you get to build relationships to so many different people, strong relationships as well, because you've been sort of in the trenches and you said, okay, there's an opportunity here, let's go. If you do this, I do this, we work together, then there's something amazing that we can accomplish here. And I think it's quite unique that you get to do that in these kinds of business roles, develop relationships beyond just your own team in the company, beyond your own company, but you get to develop all these other business relationships.
Definitely. Now, when we travel around to different trade shows, it's maybe not 800 people, but it seems sometimes it's the same people you meet at trade shows around the world. And there also becomes a great parties, because even though people leave for another, then they leave to a competitor, you still maintain relationship. So if you've been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years, I can see how you are hugging with most of your competitors. You know when companies potentially will be coming up for sale. All of these subtle things, because it is a small industry.
Yeah.
That's to an extrovert like me, I like it, but maybe it's not for all.
Let's say there's an event coming up. You gotta fly somewhere. Packing your bag. What running shoes does Alexander bring? What's like the best running shoe? What do you use?
It's the Asics, and I don't know what specifically, but they're always in the bag. So I need to have the carry-on that can just fit up in the hat. I don't know, the box upside. Above, because there's only one shirt, but there's definitely there is a running shoes and an extra set of sneakers. Then they take up majority of the space.
What do you use?
I've transitioned to the Brooks actually. Yeah. I must say they've been winning on me, especially also on the price. That's a banger. Alexander, it was awesome having you here. I think some of the things that I take with me from today is incredibly interesting to hear around how you've sort of developed from procurement, science student to procurement, and into marketing, B2B sales, marketing now, working with distributors also. We know it's an incredibly challenging feat actually to grow sales through distributors. Just can't do it on your own. And I imagine sometimes that can also be frustrating, and also learning a little bit about the, what it's been like being part of one of the largest mergers in Danish history. Huge pleasure from my side.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. The reason we're especially excited about having guests like you that don't necessarily, started out in telesales and then moved to field sales and then became a key account manager is that Jeppe and I have this thing where over the years we've observed that a lot of the best commercial people in sales or marketing, they don't necessarily come out of those disciplines. They've done something else. They come with a different perspective. And we've just seen some amazing, distributor managers, key account managers, marketing managers that transitioned into the role from a completely different perspective than let's say you've been in the role your whole life and learned sort of the discipline the classic way. So it's just really interesting to have someone who comes with a bit of a different background, but is really succeeding in the role anyway.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I agree. It took time to get over there, but definitely maybe you are even more passionate when you reach it because you wake up every day and you just you have tried all the other functions, so you know I have found my place. This is where I really want to be. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any questions or requests, you can always contact us at info@kvadrant.dk. If you want to know even more about Kvadrant Consulting, please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our newsletter, or go to our website kvadrant.dk.